Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Tuesday afternoon. Welcome to Tea Time Tuesday. I'm so excited that we're back today. Last week, actually, we weren't able to join one another and be on live. And so I'm glad that we are back together again today. And we are streaming live. Actually, we're streaming live from the Renewal Center. I'm Carmela Head. For those of you who do not know me, I'm the Director of Renewal and Community Programs here at the Renewal Center. And we are streaming live on site from the Renewal Center this morning. Actually, I am in the media production room. I am so excited to be streaming from this room. I know we have been talking about our media production room, and we've been steadily building it up and adding decor, and so excited. Actually, I'm in the room right now with our media production consultant, our digital media consultant, Emmett Head. He's behind the scenes. We can't see him. But I'm so excited that we are here streaming live from this room. And I want to welcome everyone back to Tea Time Tuesdays. Everyone back to Tea Time Tuesdays. And I hope everyone is having a great day. Good morning, Keisha. Oh, good afternoon, Keisha. Hi, Nicole. How's everyone doing today? So I'm going to ask everyone to invite a friend, tell a friend, and also share this on your social media page to let everyone know that the Renewal Center is streaming live, and we are so excited that you have joined us today. And so without further delay, I would love to just make an awareness to everyone to visit the Renewal Center page that we've just downloaded the slideshow of the evolution of our media production room. So we want to share some slides with you to let you know the progression and how we're doing, continually growing in the media production room with some of our equipment that we've received. And so we're so excited about, we are so elated. And so we would love to also draw your attention. This month is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we will be talking a little bit more about Alzheimer's awareness at the Renewal Center. So please stay tuned to our Renewal Center pages so that you can get some resources and also find out more information about Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And so without further delay, our tea of the week. I've been kind of out of my element here. I've missed Tea Time Tuesday, And so last month, we were focusing on Black teas. And this month, we're going to focus on some other teas. Our tea of the week is oolong tea. I know we've talked about in times past about the Camellia sinensis tea. That particular leaf is used to make oolong tea as well. Oolong tea originated in China. And it has been cultivated in China and in Taiwan and in those regions. Oolong tea has a very distinctive, it has a very distinctive process that it goes through. When processing it, it is called semi-oxidation. That's the process, semi-oxidation. And after the leaves have been picked, the Camellia sinensis tea leaves have been picked, it starts to wither and then it's sun-dried. It is tossed in a basket and it breaks down the cells of the leaves. That's really interesting. I found out some really interesting information about oolong tea. The leaf surfaces are broken down and it's some type of phase of oxidation. So I invite you to go out there and look at the history of oolong tea. And there's more to that process. And so it has a very rich floral aroma and a taste. As I was doing my research, I found out that the flavors vary from the rich floral taste or aroma to the sweet and fruity, also the woodsy, and I would say it has a very versatile appeal to it. So this is a very interesting tea. How many of you guys have tasted oolong tea or have enjoyed oolong tea? I would love to see some hearts. I'm actually looking at our Facebook feed now. Has any of you taken the time to taste oolong tea? If so, we would love to hear from you to see what you enjoy about oolong tea. And so as we move forward, as we talk about our tea, we also are going to talk about our book of the week. During the month of May, we focused in more so on devotionals. And so for the month of June, July, and the first part of August, we're going to stay in alignment with our Reforming Culture series that we usually have on Wednesdays. It is going to be once a month on every first Wednesday. The Reforming Culture series is focusing on prayer. And so with that, we're going to be focusing on prayer on Tea Time Tuesday. So our book of the week, we're going to kick off with the month of June. Our book of the week is A Time to Pray God's Way by Evelyn Christensen. I hope you guys can see the hard copy that we have in our library here in the Thought Room at the Renewal Center. It's called A Time to Pray God's Way. You know, we need to incorporate prayer more so in our lives, time to commune with the Lord and to hear what He has saying. And so I'm so excited that we'll be talking about prayer and promoting our books. We have a lot of books in our library about prayer. So I would like to do a little bit of a synopsis of what this book is about. And it says, our world is in chaos, and we feel powerless to change it. But what if each of us has the group pray, each of us in the group prayed for 3 or other people? How about if we followed our praying with acts of kindness? And also if we prayed in love until all of those we prayed came for Christ? It would revolutionize our homes, our communities, and our nation. So that is the heart of this powerful design of prayer. It is renewing people's spiritual lives, changing the way they think about evangelism, and drawing thousands to Jesus. So actually, this is a very powerful book to start off our month of June, A Time to Pray God's Way by Evelyn Christensen. And so I can't wait until the rest of our Tea Time Tuesdays to share a lot of our other books on prayer. So remember to incorporate prayer in your daily life. Just as devotion, it sets the tone for your day. It sets the communion with the Lord and to hear what He is saying to us. So without further delay, we're going to move into our Tea Time Tuesday today, and I'm going to bring on our Executive Director, Patrick J. Brown.
Thank you so much, Carmela. It's so good to be here. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. It's still good to be here. So what's your tea for today? Please share with us. What are you drinking today? What's your tea of choice for today? It's so good to be here. I know we were off resetting, planning for our summer here at the Renewal Center. So we're glad to be back with you here on site and on location today. So it'd be nice to hear from you what particular teas that you may be drinking today. So, and again, please share, please invite others, please send this to them. We want to continue to foster an atmosphere of rest, of resetting, and fostering and building resilience in our community. That's why we have this time to be able to do that. One of the things I wanted to share today, let's see what we have here. What's coming in? We've got raspberry tea. Okay. All right. Thank you. White tea with a blend of fig, lavender, and rose. All righty now. Rose tea latte. All right, folks have their tea ready.
Delicious.
Yes. Mint. Okay. All right. Anybody got oolong today? The tea that you talked about? I'm not sure if we have anybody that has that today. I haven't tried that, so I'm going to have to try that as well. So thanks everybody for sharing what you got today. Let's see what else we have here. Elderberry. All right. Thank you.
That's a very healthy tea. Elderberry is very healthy. So I've heard.
Yes, it is. That immunity. Staying healthy there at the Jackson. Lemon and honey. Simple. Okay. Simple is good. Okay. Oolong tea. All right. So you have the tea. Good. Thanks everybody for sharing and chiming in. I know that we were off last week, so it's good to be back. Good to be back with you. Today and this month, we will be celebrating Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. And so we're excited about being able to explore those initiatives and supporting that awareness. So thank you so much for being on today. And thank you, Carmela, for opening up today. All right. So today's subject, I want us to take a time. I know we are focusing on resting and resetting and building resilience. And so many of us, as you go, we're on the latter end of spring, moving into our summer. I think this is a critical time that we really focus on what type of activities are we going to engage in this coming summer? What type of resting are we doing? Are we resetting our lives? Are we thinking about building resilience and fostering that kind of atmosphere? And so today I really wanted to dive into about perfectionism. That's the focus for today, is nobody's perfect. Wow. We'll say, well, why would you want to have a tea time having a discussion about perfectionism? Well, many times we place so much on our lives. We put expectations on ourselves that nobody else will place on us. And yet many times perfectionism harms us and hurts us more than it helps us. And why do we do that? Why do we want to have a tea time that is dedicated to looking at perfectionism? So today's presentation is really about taking a time to reflect and reset from perfectionism. Now, this is important. And I want to ask yourselves, if you can, in the chat, why do we need to have discussions or really reconsider our thoughts toward perfectionism? If you want to answer that, because many times people struggle with that and don't rest from it. They don't reset their expectations of themselves because of perfectionism. And I wanted to start out our month with this particular subject and helping you let go of these expectations. And sometimes they're false expectations we place on ourselves. And so you can really reach your potential when you are not living in perfectionism. So before we do that, let's just take a moment to just decompress, to relax ourselves, and just take a pause here for a moment before we get into our discussion for today, okay? So let's just take about 30 seconds to just settle ourselves. Just take a few more seconds, taking a pause. All right, thank you, thank you. So, perfectionism. It can be very harmful. And today's presentation that I'd like to share with you is about nobody's perfect, the box of perfectionism. The box of perfectionism. Why do we focus on perfectionism? I'd like to hear from you, hear your thoughts before we move forward. Why do we, and many times, why do you experience it? You might experience it, others might experience it, but I want to get your ideas on why do you think that people deal, or if you're one, why do you perhaps struggle or deal with perfectionism? Is that something that you deal with, and perhaps why? We're going to take some time and really work on how to develop strategies to get out of being a perfect person and why we set ourselves up for failure many times because we're focused specifically on what do we think it is to be a person of perfection. So I want to walk us through five areas to get out of this box of perfectionism and perhaps give us an opportunity to really level set what's important to our lives as it relates to being more effective in our daily life so that we don't become people who think that there's a certain standard that we have to live in that really we've set ourselves up for. So I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to share on the screen. Number one is embrace failure. Embrace failure. Think about this. Perfectionists tend to be more personally critical of themselves for not measuring up to their own ideals, and then they punish themselves for it. So the first thing we're going to do to get out of this box of perfectionism, folks, is to embrace failure. Now, there are a couple of things that are being said here. I want to acknowledge what our participants are saying. Drive some to unrealistic goals of perfection. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Sometimes the root of perfectionism stems from a fear of failure. Thank you for sharing that. Overcompensating in the area of perfectionism because of a lack of confidence in other areas. Please chime in. I think this is something that we can all really benefit from. But the first thing I want us to focus on today is embrace failure and why we need to embrace failure. Why? Because we're flawed human beings. Why? Because we're individuals who have flaws. We have failures. We have frailty. And so it is okay to embrace failure. It is okay. And it's actually healthy to do so. What do you mean? Why should I embrace something that's considered failure? Well, when we understand that we are flawed human beings and that we don't have to be perfect, then we can embrace anytime there is a failure and a flaw or there's frailty that shows up in our lives, because they become livable and learning moments. They become livable and learning moments. So I want you to think about perhaps times that when there was a failure in your life and then you just really went hard on yourself. There's that self-talk that we have in our conscious and in our subconscious that happens many times when we have a perfectionistic mindset. So again, we want to be optimistic, yes, but at the same time, realistic and making sure that we are embracing a realistic view of our life by embracing failure. And I want us to really think about this. When things don't go as planned, do we look at it as an opportunity for learning and an opportunity for living? If we're perfectionists, then what ends up happening is we have a fear of failure. We don't take any more risks. And so as a result of that, we don't get used to stepping out and being productive. Okay. Failure is really just a state of mind. That's what it really is. It is a state of mind. And so it's important that if we're going to break out of this box or this expectation that we place on ourselves about perfectionism, embracing failure helps us to begin to embrace who we are and embrace living and embrace learning. When we embrace failure, we want to remove this box. We end up trapping ourselves in these areas. And so failure is a state of mind. And I want us to get used to be able to embrace failure. Hey, you know what? This happened. This situation transpired in my life, but it does not mean that it's fatal. And it does not mean that it's final when there is failure. So it's an opportunity for learning, an opportunity for living when we embrace failure. And I want you to think about, how do you respond to when there's failure? Are you the first person to go off on yourself? Are you the first person to become intense? Is there that negative self-talk that happens? Is there that creation of that narrative because you feel or maybe think there's a failure? Well, embrace it. Why? Because everyone struggles and everyone makes mistakes. So because we all struggle and because we all make mistakes, right? Everyone struggles, everyone makes mistakes. Common humanity is that there's imperfection in all of us. So we should not demand that of ourselves. So the first principle that we want to really begin to think through is embracing failure. Now, that might be tough for people who are perfectionists, but falling short is part of being human. Part of being human is falling short. We're going to do it. You don't want to be constantly ongoing inner judge, constantly not good enough, outward looking, constantly looking, wanting to present flawlessness, and from these outside and internal attacks that we place on ourselves. They're even self-imposed expectations, folks. So I want you to think about this as we're in tea time today. Think about how maybe you have allowed yourself to embrace perfectionism. And I want us to be able to realize this entire summer, nobody's perfect. I'm going to allow myself to be that this failure, embracing failure, is about learning and is about living, about learning and about living. So I want to add another L to this since we love our alliterations. Are we looking for opportunities for growth when we embrace failure? Or are we hard on ourselves with this consistently wanting to present this flawlessness? There's no such thing. So it's important that we don't have self-imposed types of perfectionistic mindsets, okay? So let's embrace failure, all right? Let's go on to the next point. Not only do we want to embrace failure, give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. Let's sit with this one. How do you give yourself a break? What are your thoughts on that? Let's meditate on that one. Again, we're focusing on resetting, resting, and building resilience. So I want you to think about, how do you give yourself a break? Anybody? How do you give yourself a break? What does that mean when you say give yourself a break? You know what it means? Not to take yourself so seriously that if you don't give yourself a break, you'll end up breaking. If we don't give ourselves a break, we will end up breaking. So how do you give yourself a break? Perhaps it's not taking yourself seriously. Here's a few answers coming in. Okay. Give myself grace. Sit in silence and reflect on my day. Speak a kind word to yourself when you make a mistake. Laugh out loud. Time alone, away from the noise. Okay. Very critical. Folks, give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. See, a perfectionist, many times, they view themselves as so extraordinary, so much more driven, so much more successful, so much talented, that they're not prepared for the ups and downs. See, when you're so perfect, you're not prepared for the ups and downs. Why? Because you're so driven, you're so successful, you're so phenomenal, you're so profound, that when the ups and then the downs come, it's hard for you to be resilient. The mental toughness is impacted. Give yourself a break and say, things are down. It's common that I'm imperfect, and it's common that I'm not going to constantly be on my A game. I'm not going to be on my A game consistently. So it's okay, because I know that in humanity, we're not going to have problem-free lifestyles. So when they do come, when we do see an imperfection come and arise in us, that's an opportunity to demonstrate creativity. It's an opportunity to innovate. It is an opportunity for us to expand who we are. All right? How else do we give ourselves a break? Self-compassion. Self-compassion. Yes, absolutely. Giving ourselves some latitude. Absolutely. This is important because we're so phenomenal. Now think about it. We're in a world where everybody's a boss, right? I'm a boss. I'm grinding it out. Just grinding. You'll grind so much you have nothing left. Okay? And so what we do is we present that everybody needs to be this grand entrepreneur. Everybody needs to be the boss. Everybody needs to be so free of problems. That's not realistic, because life, we're going to have problems. And so it's important that when they do come, if we're so high on this totem pole and pedestalize where we think we're supposed to be, we're really manifesting perfectionism. So I want you to really think on that. And what ends up happening is, well, Then we begin to tell ourselves a narrative. Well, I'm the only one struggling with this. And folks just don't understand what I'm experiencing. That's not true. There's somebody else clear on the other side of this world in the Southern Hemisphere that is struggling more than me. Right? So why do I live in this box of perfectionism? Folks, give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. Make yourself safe. Unconditional self-acceptance, encouragement, and support. Say that with me. Unconditional self-acceptance, encouragement, and support. Giving yourself a break is not elevating standards that you know you cannot reach. Giving ourselves an ability to say, there are standards that I just simply know I'm not going to meet. And so let's not provide ourselves with self-imposed, elevated, pedestalized expectations that we have to be something that we're not. We got to be very careful, all right? Because many times I'll log in and I'll read in media, social media, and snippets that you constantly got to be at a particular level, at a particular age. You have to be at a particular space and income. You have to be at a particular area financially and economically. You have to have a certain amount of square footage. Give yourself a break, all right? Give yourself permission. Common humanity. It is understanding. We all have our imperfections, and this helps you care for you and for others in your life, all right? So again, give yourself a break. Very, very important. Number 3, shift the script. What are some scripts that perfectionism tells us? I want you to really take your time and think through this. What are some scripts that perfectionism will tell us? Think about that. This is a good tea time today. I'm really liking this subject. Because I feel the pressure. You feel the pressure, don't you, sometimes? Not that you bow to it, but it tries to impact you because of societal standards. Shift the script. So what are some scripts that a perfectionist ideology, a perfectionist mindset will tell you? Now, we started out with what? Embracing failure, giving yourself a break, but shifting the script. What are some scripts? Let's talk about the scripts. I'd love to hear what you have to say here. Let's see here. How can I have done better? Woo! Now that one right there. How can I have done better? Interesting. We're not measuring up. That's a script. I'm not supposed to make a mistake. Yes. Thank you, Nicole, for sharing that. Mental muscles. What are some other things that we see? I have to be at the top of my game. You know you can do better. Look at XYZ and how they did it. It has to be done according to this model. What are the steps I need to get there? Because it needs to be methodical. Come on, folks. I need to do more. Meeting others' expectations. See, these are scripts. Now, we started out by talking about embracing failure. We're going to really, I like to say it, sit with that. Get yourself a break. Here's another one. I don't lose. Folks, let's shift the script of perfectionism. I want us to think about all these scripts. Those are scripts that maybe we tell ourselves. Those are scripts that others who compete tell ourselves. It's the script of society. It's the scripts of organizational dynamics many times. It's the script that we even tell ourselves because whatever expectations we've placed on ourselves because of perfectionism. And so we're tempted to believe we stay in continual judgment. We stay in continual assessment. We stay in continual, consistent evaluation. Now, mind you, there are times we do need evaluation and feedback and things like that. Totally. But this is not that discussion. This is more about perfectionism and how it impacts us. Here's another one. Got to go the distance at all costs. You know what else is another one? It is what it is. Because we think we're supposed to change everything, or we think, well, things are never going to change. So we just say, well, it's going to be what it's going to be. It is what it is. C'est la vie, that's life. See, there's a script that we have that's innate in our subconscious even, that gets us focused. Now, I want us to think about, how are we going to change these scripts? Now, it's one thing, folk. Now, mind you, it's one thing if you're working for NASA and you need to launch a rocket or a shuttle. The math has to be perfect. We're not talking about entering back into the Earth's atmosphere or flying a rocket to the moon. There's certain things in engineering that just, you got to have it right. We're talking about how we treat ourselves. And how we treat others in everyday life. So we're not talking about launching a shuttle here. We're thinking about how we treat ourselves, how we treat other people, and in how important it is for us to embrace the gift of imperfection, and how that is a gift given to all of us so that we can continue to live. The gift of being imperfect says, I'm continually evolving and I'm continually growing. That's the gift of what it is to live in imperfection. The gift of perfection that's not a gift, because it is a false perspective, and it is a false paradigm that really blocks us from being creatively, authentically vintage who we're supposed to be. Okay, so it's important. And really, we think perfectionism is supposed to help us when really it prevents us from taking flight. We can't move forward because we think all these particular things are supposed to be in order and the way they're supposed to be. And if they're not, what's the first thing we do? We begin to block ourselves from being able to move forward. So I want us to really think about shifting the script. Now, here's a way, if I can suggest to you, here's a way of shifting the script. I want you to think about this. Now, in the mind, we have what we call our conscious, right? And our conscious is what we're doing right now. We're aware of what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're remembering, what we're imagining, right? So we have those areas, our memory, our affections, our reasoning capacity. That's our conscious. But then when we go to sleep, our subconscious, or some people would call that spirit, or who we are, essence, that is still functioning, which is why we dream, and which is why we have vision, which is why we have imagination, and we have our REM sleep, right? So I want you to think about, how do you change the subconscious narrative? It's by our affirmations. It's about what we feed ourselves, our mental diets. I mean, if I'm constantly eating Krispy Kreme donuts, that's going to impact my body. What are we feeding our mental diets, both consciously and subconsciously, which will help us shift the script? We can shift the script when we begin to feed our subconscious and our consciousness differently. So I want to ask you a question. If we're going to shift the script of perfectionism, what are some things that you think we can do? Again, this is about resilience. So let's work from each other. Good to see some more folks coming on. Hey, Kimberly. Hey, Karen, how you doing? Thanks for coming on. I want us to think about some other areas and think about, how can we shift these scripts that we tell ourselves, because we know we tell ourselves these scripts. What are your thoughts on that? I want you to sit on this and meditate on this. This is because we're going to get out of this box. Anybody else ready to get out this box of perfectionism if it's there? It may not be the totality of your life, but there are some areas, boy, it impacts us. And I think it's important that we really take a step back. And you hear me say this all the time, sit with it, sit with it. Why? Because I think sometimes we don't sit with our own thoughts enough to really look at where they are. So how are we going to shift the scripts? What are your thoughts on that? think it's important that we do that. So shifting the script, and I'll talk a little bit about more daily affirmations. All right. It's important that we do that. Positive affirmations, we're getting that in. That's critical. All right. Importance. Progress is more important than perfect. So I think that we are on the same page to be able to show ourselves compassion. There it is. All right. I'd like you to share some of your practices or principles or approaches to shifting the script. I think that it is that script, that mental script that we got to really look at and shift that so that we can move out of that. All right, let's hear some more here. Rewarding yourself for the small gains. Yes, how do you reward yourself? Daring to be adequate. Daring to be adequate. That's a mouthful right there. Prayer. Yes. Meditation. Yes. So again, we're shifting the script. Let's move on to the next one. Number 4, learn from your inner critic. Learn from your inner critic. Now think about this. We do have like that internal voice that tells us what we're not good enough. Failure is here, and other people are going to let us down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's important to look at the stories that we tell ourselves. I like to call it the critical storyteller. So if we have a critical storyteller, that means we can have a creative storyteller. What stories do we tell ourselves? We listen to our inner critic so we can begin to revise. Everything can be edited. Everything can be edited. So when there's a script that comes to my thoughts, it can be edited. But do we take the time to hear that inner voice, that inner critic, and then we do the revisions? See, as a writer, many times we just allow ourselves to release what we're writing, let our ideas flow. We jump into what we call a stream of consciousness, right? We jump into the intellectual stream and we just flow and we just navigate with it. And that causes us to free flow. Then when it's time for us to take that to market or take it into a publishing context or presentation, what do? We edit and we revise. Why? I have a vision for my writing, a vision for my paper, a vision for my script. But I edit it because I want to make sure it's accurate, it's clear, it's brief, there's clarity. So we can always edit. Every script that comes to our minds with our lives, we have the ability to edit and revise. Everything can be edited and every script can experience revision, can be revised. The purpose of revision is to make sure that there's clarity for the reason for the script. And there are scripts that we get. So we must learn from our inner critic. See, the amygdala in our brain many times hardwires us for negativity. Why do you think that bad news sells so much? Oh, the video went viral. Bad news. Did you hear this? Did you hear that? Did you hear this? Did you hear that? The amygdala is hardwired for that. So we can change the nature of the brain by listening to the inner voice, listening to the inner critic, and making edits and revisions. But we got to be conscious to do that and be aware of doing that. That's why many times we do pray, we do meditate, okay? And be able to revise and bring edits, and we do that in stages. Now, again, perfectionist, that doesn't mean, oh my God, I'm just thinking these negative things. Stop it. Let's stop the evaluating, and we just simply are doing it day by day. One of the phrases I like to say is, it's not an overnight thing, but it is an everyday thing. Does that make sense? It's not an overnight thing, but it is an everyday thing, which means I may not get this changed overnight. I may not see it happen immediately, but it's not an overnight thing. It's an everyday thing because I now have another day that I am breathing, that I am here, which means I have an opportunity to continue to live and to learn and to look for opportunities to edit that script and to revise it. So it may not be an overnight thing, but it is an everyday thing. So that's critical that we look at that. So again, learn from your inner critic. You know, I kind of missed y'all last week. You didn't have tea time last week. I'm enjoying being back. Okay. So I also want to, when we talk about learning from the inner critic, is I want you to consider this. Cultivate a learning mindset. How do we cultivate a learning mindset? What we do is we have to ask questions. Ask ourselves questions. Asking questions, that's critical. Are we looking for opportunities for growth? Are we clarifying situations at hand? Now, here are a few ways to learn from your inner critic. I want you to get this down and get this in your heart. First of all, I want you to consider, if you will, ask yourself, do I want to stay here? Do I want to stay here? I want us to think about that. Do I want to stay here? Do I want to remain here? So I think that's something that we need to ask ourselves. Think about it and take your time and write that down. Do I want to stay here? That's important. Do I want to stay here? So I want you to think about that. And really, again, we sit with that. We ask ourselves these questions because in asking ourselves these questions, clarification, will come because we're learning from our inner critic and we're willing to embrace failure, giving myself a break, and we're shifting the script. So that's one question we're going to ask ourselves. What's another question that we can ask? Is this what I want to feel, to be feeling or doing? Is this what I want to be feeling or doing? Think about that as well. And I think another good thing is also to say, you know, what empathy can I bring myself in this moment? What empathy can I bring to myself in this moment? Sometimes we're not empathetic with ourselves. Therefore, in turn, we're not empathetic with anyone else. So we want to ask ourselves, what empathy can I bring to myself in this very moment right now? So that's important. All right. So again, learn from the inner critic. And lastly, talking about nobody's perfect, the box of perfectionism, look outside yourself. Look outside yourself. I think, maybe I'm wrong, I think we're all recovering self-judgers. I think we're like in this place where it's like we're all recovering from all this judgment. And so we have to look outside ourselves. I want us to think about that. Look outside yourself. How do you look outside yourself? Anybody? How do you look outside yourself? So I think it's important that we look outside ourselves and not have catastrophic thinking as well. We immediately go to what's not going to happen. We immediately go to what can't happen, what's not going to happen. What empathy can I bring to myself at this very moment? Really consider that and think through, look outside yourself. I'm going to bring this back up on the screen so we can look at these 5 areas in this box of perfectionism. See, when we understand that we have a learner mindset, there is always connectedness when we have a learner mindset. Without a learner's mindset, there's no connection. See, when we have a learner's mindset and we're thinking about looking outside yourself, You will always have connectedness when you have a learner's mindset. When we don't have a learner's mindset, we won't connect with people because we don't think there's anything to learn. We're not looking outside of ourselves. Therefore, we stay where we are because we don't think anyone has anything to contribute to us. And as a result, but I have the knowledge to give to everybody else, but they don't have the knowledge to give to me. See, when we have a learning mindset, there is always connectedness, and it frees us from performance orientation and perfectionism. Because, to go to our last point, we are looking outside of ourselves. Many perfectionists suffer from isolationism. There's this mindset that, you know what, I have to perform. I have to be on point. I got to be on point. I can't drop the ball. I just got to be. And then it ends up happening is that they end up in isolation. So people don't understand me. Statements like that start coming up. Well, I mean, people don't understand the demand that's on my life. People don't understand the level of things that I have to be responsible for. You'll hear terms like that as you begin to evolve and expand in leadership. That means the higher that you go, the higher your learning mindset, the stronger your connectedness. Because you value people in a different way. And so you have a healthier relationship with yourself, which means you have a healthier relationship with others because you're looking outside of yourself now. You do it with intentionality. You're deliberate about it. Okay? All right. So let's go back over this one more time. And I'd like to just bring this back up one more time so we can all be in a space of reviewing. All right, number one, let me go through this again so we can all review. Embrace failure. Embrace failure. Failure is, again, largely a state of mind. So let's become more adaptive so that we can explore and be in a place of intrinsic growth. Number two, give yourself a break. Stop living at some idealized version of yourself. Some idealized version of yourself. That happens a lot of times when you get closer to birthdays or if you get closer to reunions and things like that. Let's not try to live up to some idealized version of ourselves. We got to make sure we accommodate to the inevitable ups and downs of life. Number three, shift the script. Shift the script. Okay? Sometimes extreme mindsets really don't create true happiness. All right? So it's important, folks, that we recognize that we won't really move forward if we have that mindset and don't shift the scripts that we tell ourselves. And we heard and we read a lot of the scripts that some of you as participants and viewers today, you gave. Number four, learn from your inner critic. Learn from your inner critic. How are we going to learn from that? That means that we have to look at and start focusing on cultivating a learning mindset, questions, clarifying things. All right. And then you end up noticing you are a self-judger, and then you begin to renew your mind in that area. And lastly, look outside of yourself. Look outside of yourself. You're now looking outside. And when we have a learner's mindset, we strengthen our connectivity. Okay. So let's pause here for a moment. And again, as we focus on what we shared today in these 5 areas of the box of perfectionism, we'll be back here next Tuesday for our Tea Time Tuesday. We're going to continue the series and do some practices to help us with that. I'd like to encourage you to think about how you can shift the script all week. think about how you're going to shift scripts in your life. Maybe there was a script that you told yourself, or maybe you tell yourself all the time. Let's silence that and let's shift it so that we can see our lives. Now, this is not about living in complacency. That's not what discussion is about. This is about looking at how many times we don't embrace failures. And then as a result of that, we really don't see transformation take place because we have not embraced our full humanity. Okay. So let's think about that. Let's consider that. I'd like you, if you will, in the chat, what are your takeaways for today's session? What are your takeaways? What are some points that may have jumped out to you during this time today? I'd like to hear from you and get your thoughts, and then we'll finish. All right, let's see what we have here. Going to have to learn from my inner critic. Very good insight. Thank you so much. When we are very critical of ourselves, we have to remind ourselves of our identity and God's love for us. Absolutely. What are some of the takeaways here? Yes. What does he say about us? Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. What else? Any other takeaways? Please share with us what your takeaway is. Think through this week about how to shift the script. And as you shift that script, you'll begin to rewrite what's happening. Your rest will be different. Your sleep will be different. Your time of meditation and relaxation will be different because you've learned to give yourself a break and you've come to that place where the script in your life has been shifted. I know I have to do that too. And I think it's important that is an area that we look at so that we can continue to grow and expand who we are. All right, let's continue here. Be careful not to think in extremes. Give yourself room to grow and shift. I thought being a perfectionist was good. That has changed. Thank you for sharing that. I'm enough. I don't have to be perfect. It's okay to be the best version of myself. Absolutely. Well, please share your ideas. Thank you so much, everyone. I think this is important, and I want to encourage you. Nobody's perfect. A box of perfectionism. Embrace failure. Give yourself a break. Shift the script. Learn from your inner critic. Look outside yourself. Would anybody else like to share what their takeaways are? Sometimes it's hard for me to look outside myself for help because I want to protect myself and not be disappointed by people. Good takeaway. Thank you for sharing that. Again, folks, it's important that we take a break and give yourself a break, not be so evaluative of yourself. All right. No one's perfect. We're simply redeemed. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So let's think about this. Continue to expand. I'm learning that no one's perfect and to embrace community. Oh, yes. Yes. So next week, we're going to continue our discussion. We'll start out with a locate yourself exercise next Tuesday at noon. And I've learned a lot just from having this conversation with you today. I'm going back over my journals and looking at, from my journals, different principles that I've learned over the years to help me rewrite and revise the script. That's something I would like to talk about next week. And perhaps that's a discussion we can have about how to really focus on shifting the script in a practical way. Hopefully that'll be helpful to you. So I want to remind you of a few things that we're focusing on here at the Renewal Center. Please make sure that you visit all of our media pages. You can reach us on Facebook here in our pages, as well as Instagram at the Renewal Centers, or you can go to our website, www.therenewalcenters.com. I also want to remind you, for those of you that connect with us, hopefully these Tea Time Tuesdays and some of the other services that we provide for you are impactful. I'd like you to consider donating to the Renewal Center. You can donate in several different ways, also through our website. You can also text to give. You can give a donation by texting to the Renewal Center there to that number. And also, if you go to your Apple, Google, or Android store, you just type in the Renewal Center, and then you can upload our app. We have our videos, our audio, our content, our blog. We're building and expanding our digital presence. And if this type of content is valuable to you, please go ahead and download, because we have a strategy in place to continue to expand our content. So we'd like you to be a part of this community. And again, we'd love your support. And if you're ever in the Concord, North Carolina, Charlotte area, please come on and have some tea with us. Make sure that you spend some time with us. We'd like to have your presence here. And I think that this has been a good opportunity for us to create our own community of resilience. So next week, okay, once we make this announcement, please share, please tag some friends, send it to their messengers, send it to their inboxes. Let's build this discussion so that we can all collectively grow and expand who we are in building that, all right? So again, thank you so much for being a part of our conversations today. This has been really good. And again, we'll leave this streaming for you. Please follow us. We have some updates by Carmela Head, who's made a video of our updates and what we're doing here locally for the area and for the region. So we ask for your prayers. We ask for your positive affirmations. We ask that you continue to walk with us in what we're looking to do here in this community and what we call our global vision. That's global and local. We have a global vision, and that's what we want to do as we spread this message of I Am Renewal. So again, thanks everybody for being on. We'll see you next week. Please remember every first Wednesday, our Reforming Culture series prayer. All right. Be on the lookout for what we're doing in our digital discipleship. We have some great announcements coming up this week, and you definitely want to be a part of it. So thanks again so much. Always remember, I am Renewal, and we'll talk with you soon. Have a good day.
Hello, my name is Carmela E. Head.
Hello, everybody. I'm Prophet Hope Milton.
Hi, I'm Patrick J. Brown, Executive Director of Culture and Context of the Renewal Center.
Here at the Renewal Center, it is the center for prophetic art, thought, voice, and action.
The one thing I love about the Renewal Center is the core values, which we're revealing Christ, renewing minds, we're restoring lives and reforming community. And we know that the only way that we can do that is to reveal Christ to everyone.
That's right. If any person is in Christ, that person will be and can be a new creation. You've been created to reveal Christ. That's right. Christ in you, being born from above, being born again, being generated from a higher place, which is Christ. In you, the hope of glory.
And when I think about renewal, I think about continual growth. We all have the capacity. We all have the very much capacity to move forward and to expand ourselves. So that's what growth and renewal is all about here at the Renewal Center.
So excited to be here. I hope that you will continue to connect. This is an awesome vision. And I'm just excited about everything that God is doing in the Renewal Center here in Concord, North Carolina.
I am.
And I am
Renewal.